Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Corey Rosen, and you are listening to the Story Podcast. And today I have on a super awesome guest, Mr. Sam Yoder. Sam Yoder is a trombonist, guitarist, composer, and recording engineer from Lancaster, PA. He studied music recording technology, and composition at Lebanon Valley College, and has been performing, recording, and writing for various projects around the central PA area for the past 9-ish years. Some highlights include playing, recording, and touring with Lancaster's brass band Big Boy Brass, covering the low brass chair at American Music Theater, and writing/recording his own original music. Sam, how you doing today?
Great. Thanks for having me on, Corey.
Of
This is
course.
cool.
So you have a lot of stuff, a lot of talent in you. Where did this all start? Where did the love for music and instruments come from?
Well, I guess like most people around here, I started playing in elementary school and I came up through like the concert band kind of thing, playing trombone. Um, but I tell most people that probably I didn't really get super excited about music until high school. It was kind of late that I kind of started discovering groups like I was really into the Red Hot Chili Peppers and like funk stuff and discovering like uh Parliament, Funkadelic, and that kinda stuff when I was
Mm,
in high school that, like, made me wanna learn to play guitar, and then I, like, picked up a guitar. I always had a guitar lying around, I never really touched it. Up until that point, I was just playing, like, concert band and orchestra concerts on trombone, and it was, like, something I just kinda did, and it was, like, wasn't a true passion
yeah.
yet. But then when I started playing guitar and, like, learning songs that I wanted to learn, like songs by The Police and the Red Hot Chili Peppers, like I mentioned, that I, like, really got into playing and wanting to dedicate time to actually getting really good at guitar. And then by the end of high school, I was like, "Okay, I wanna take this further and go to school for music so I can keep growing as a musician." And then I got to school and I discovered, man, there's a lot of stuff that I don't know, like, I need to put in a lot of time and hone my craft, and it kinda wrapped around at that point, I was more focusing on guitar, and when I got to college, I was, like realized that there's all this stuff about trombone that I didn't know, all these jazz records that I was learning about, and, uh, working with other students there and the professors that I was like, I need to put some time in on my horn too and practice that, and so it's just been, for me, growing as a musician, practicing, and that excites me, like, just feeling the incrementally slowly getting better and growing in my playing, so that's kind of my story and how.
So you mentioned going into college, and that's when you realized, oh wow, there's a lot here to do.
Yes.
What all did you do with it? Did it start in college that you started writing and composing, or have you already begun that previously?
Yeah, so I would kind of write stuff and record stuff just in my, like, janky bedroom setup in high school on guitar, just, like, silly stuff, but, yeah, it wasn't until I got to college, Lebanon Valley had very nice recording studios and great facility to do that, so I was learning all that stuff in classes and, um, with my friends, we were going in and recording and writing music, um and then in college, I was really into, like, jam bands. I was really
Mm,
into Humphreys McGee and Fish and those kinda things, and with those groups, there's, like, a large part of improvisation that is a big part of that music. So, realizing that and, like, listening to interviews with those bands, they would be like, "Oh, yeah, it's like these jazz records," or they would be talking about jazz stuff, and I'm like, "Okay, I need to go study that stuff as well if I wanna grow as a improviser or composer and writing music." So, all of that.
so when did you start actually writing pieces? Like, for, like, passionate, legitimate, "I would show this to other people" pieces?
That was probably in college. I started recording at a small band of friends, we would play, like, jazz fusion kinda stuff and go in and record it. Also, I was taking, um, composition lessons with a professor there, Justin Morel. He's a great guitarist and writes amazing music himself for big bands, and, um, so I kind of went in and studied with him, and we uh, would write for different groups, different orchestrations, and going through that really taught me a lot about how to write for horn sections and different groups. So I would just go in and write pieces for that, and yeah, and then writing tunes for like a jazz combo and that kind of stuff. So,
Let's talk about, that stuff, style of arranging. What is required to arrange for horns? What are some of your favorite types of arrangements, like, horn-wise? Like, what is that called? What are the, I graduated with a degree, I should know this. Um, how many horns do you like to have in a section? Go into that.
um, well, the group I'm writing for now, my new group, I Spy, I'm calling it, is a bunch of original music that I've been writing for. It's a three-piece horn section.
That's what I mean.
Yeah, so for that, I like to have trombone, a saxophone, and a trumpet, and, um, writing for a three-piece horn section, I find is there's so much you can do with it and different, uh, techniques, I guess, and also utilizing certain instruments together sometimes, um, taking things away, having maybe one instrument play the melody the first time, and then maybe when it comes around again through a certain section of the song, reintroducing other instruments and layering things really adds variety to a horn section and writing for one.
What's the biggest horn section you've ever written for?
Uh, that would have probably been in college when we had to write for big bands, um, but also writing for big boy brass, that has been a lot of horns, but sometimes for those arrangements, it's usually, like, there's, like, 3 or 4 parts, maybe, like, a trombone part, couple saxophone parts, and maybe a couple trumpet parts. So it's
Not giant,
not like 8 different horn parts going simultaneously.
right.
It's
Still a lot to think about, though.
yeah,
'Cause I'd argue that, a 3 I would hate to, organize or write for a three-piece, setup as opposed to a setup like Big Boy Brass, 'cause with that such limited amount of people, you gotta really be careful of where you put the melody, where you put the harmony, and do you even have a bass?
right. There is a bass in I Spy,
Of
but
course, right.
yeah, so
I mean, like, ensemble-wise, 'cause I know with, Big Boy Brass, it's all just horns plus a kit, and I know there's a guitarist, which
yep,
might be you sometimes.
that is me.
Uh But for, like, a horn piece, I guess I should have asked what else do you have in I Spy besides just horns?
So it's, guitar, bass, and drums, and then the three-piece horn section, and
Okay.
I'm, playing guitar. I would like to incorporate some trombone stuff into it, but that's, working that in. Um, but yeah, finding different ways to write for this set of instruments that's not just, like, having people play all the time.
Mhm.
I made an arrangement of the Police song "Message in a Bottle," and it kind of starts out the way I started out is the bass is playing the melody, which is something that doesn't happen as
No.
often, and the horns are kind of playing pads. They're almost like accompanying with chords, which I think is a cool texture. It's not like, "Oh, horns play the melody and bass player just plays
Bass.
bass," you know?
I know
Like
that it's nice 'cause, traditionally, it would be the horns are, like, the main melody that they shine through the best, and then you have, like, woodwinds or whatever as, like, pads or whatever. But inverting it I like to do that in my music as well, where I have horns as more of a pad sound, because it's so much fuller sounding than and it's louder, and with loudness is great, for, like, pad stuff.
yeah, yeah. people tend to lean towards, like, whatever is, like, the loudest or the upfront instrument, but maybe, like, breaking it down and just having one instrument play or a couple instruments play is really adds range to the music, which is something I like to think a lot about when I'm writing.
And it pulls in the audience more to listen to that person because once everything cuts out, they're like, "Wait a minute, what's happening?"
Yeah,
And they have to pay attention. Like, I know, Big Boy Brass, whenever you guys always have a breakdown somewhere in your show. And it's either, giving the guitarist a solo or giving the drummist drum
yeah,
drummer a solo. And, and it's great performance-wise because then you get to dance around, interact with the audience, and cheer on whoever's doing your solo.
exactly. What like,
So
if it's everything all the time, going all at once, you're just like, that's gonna get, like, to
annoying.
be too much
Yeah.
too quickly, so
Unlike the movie, it's not always good.
I haven't
Everything
seen
at
that
once.
yet.
No, I haven't seen it either, but I've heard really great things. I've seen clips of it, and I think I have to watch it. But, yeah, yeah, to have something have going full force, you have to horns and, brass especially are like little gems that should be added on the top. No one wants to listen to a trumpet blare for, you know, an hour unless you're at, like, a marching band, but even then, it's like
And
it's a
I'm
lot.
sure the trumpet player doesn't wanna blare for
Oh,
an
sure, they don't, wanna do that either. But it's a lot of musicians I feel a lot of beginner musicians don't realize that, what you should be aiming for is shining pieces as opposed to, everywhere all at once, forte, 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 because it sounds good,
right.
really loud. No, what you should have is something that, ebbs and flows. It's like a river, a roller coaster. It goes up and down. It draws attention. It blares in your face. Yeah, sure. They can
Yeah,
have that moment, and it's gonna be way greater if you have that at an, end of a piece or the climax of a piece as opposed to in the beginning, even though sometimes going big and brash at the beginning is also really great too.
yeah. Something we talked about in school sometimes is in our classes for mixing, they would talk about if you listen to a mix really loud, you'll perceive it as sounding better instantly, because that's just the way
How we think.
our minds work. When something's loud, we kind of perceive it as being better, but then as soon as you take that same mix and turn it down and listen to it at a softer volume, if it sounds bad then, like, that's the true judgment of the mix, like, if it can sound really good and intentional and punchy at, like, a low level, then it's gonna sound good anywhere, as opposed to if it only sounds good because it's loud, and that's kinda, like, tricking you, it's kinda deceiving you to think it's good, and maybe that's the same thing with orchestration, like, there's this temptation to write as if I have all my parts lined up to have just a block of notes just going the entire time, it's a temptation to just fill things in or fill up all the parts, but maybe just having 1 or 2 parts or something simple, adds dynamic range and gets you out of that mindset to just fill everything up all the time.
And it gives people a break that, they need. We are humans after all. We can only
Yeah,
hold so much air.
that's
C
another thing.
Circular breathing only works to a certain extent, if you can even do that.
Yeah, and since I play trombone and play guitar, I feel like sometimes people who don't play brass instruments when they write for a horn section or something, the sometimes things can get a little unrealistic
Mm,
in terms of, like, brass players, it's a very physical thing playing a brass instrument, and it's hard on your embouchure
on
and,
your lungs,
uh
getting breath support.
yeah, breath support, but also trombone player, trumpet players, your lips get very
Oh, yeah,
tired
absolutely.
if you're playing for a long time.
Forget if you're a French hornist.
Yeah, exactly. So there needs to be space. You can't have the trumpet player, like, hitting high Cs the entire time or whatever. You just
Can't do it.
need to give them room.
Yeah, and Oh god, there was something else I wanted to say, but I forgot about it. But, yeah, you're right because, you don't wanna you have a whole orchestra, that's a tool. You don't have to always use your whole orchestra all the time. You gotta know when is the appropriate time to use it. You can, and like I said, moving parts to different parts where you have, like, the string section play the beginning or then, like a verse or a motif, shall we get really
Exactly.
compository.
Yeah.
And then you pick up the horn section, and they get the motif in a different variation or whatever. And, we had the climactic piece, you have everyone playing in unison or, well, maybe not unison, but in all together, and you have it a really big, grand, dramatic, epic piece, and then you bring it back down just to hush it down and, to really, it's giving your audience room to think about what just happened
Right.
as well as, process what's happening now,
Exactly.
because you can't process something that's always loud all the time until it's done, and you're not gonna remember the entire piece at that point. You're just gonna have ringing in your ears.
Yes, that is true. Things getting loud. That's, something to deal with.
I remember what I was thinking. Back to, writing for horns, make sure you know what you're writing, and if it's possible, make sure this is something as a composer that I've been trying to do for a long time. I took brass lab, recently, so I know how to, work a trombone, French horn, and et cetera. I know it's possible now.
Right.
Uh, and it literally isn't that hard if you wanna YouTube is a free resource that everyone knows and loves. Figure out what range each instrument has, what's possible, what's physically possible, even, reaching out to, other composers and saying, "Oh, is this possible?" Because I know I wrote a symphony, and I like what sounds good, every composer does, and some of the things I was doing were not possible,
Right.
and I didn't know that because I didn't play the instrument.
Yeah. It's easy to plunk something out on a piano and be like, "Oh, well,
That'll work, it's fine.
these guys will be able to play it." And
So,
yeah.
I'm curious then, have you said you worked at AMT for a little bit, did you ever run into some parts that were like, "What was this composer thinking?"
Um, Sometimes that would happen, occasionally. Um, there would just be parts kind of written where voice leading gets kind of weird, or I shouldn't say anything, like, 'cause, um, the great piano player who arranges all this stuff, Andy Roberts, he does a great job. So there's, um yeah, he does a great job with all of that, but, yeah, there's sometimes stuff you don't even think about. Like, I know when I write stuff, sometimes I'm like, "Oh, this chord needs this note in it, so we'll have the trombone play it here," or whatever. But voice leading is something that is very tricky to do when you have multiple voices, like trumpet, saxophone, and trombone, for example. If you're writing chords or something, and it's easy to make the voice leading kind of jump around, and then when you go to play that part as the instrumentalist, if the person who wrote it wasn't paying attention to how the lines actually move across the page, they were just filling in kind of notes that needed to be there in the chord to make
Good.
the chord.
Yeah.
um, the melody line will sound disjointed and not really make sense, and that's something that is a constant practice, and it's also kind of hard to do sometimes. So, yeah, I've kind of at AMT, for example, that would happen occasionally, but that happens.
Well, yeah, it's another great point to not only focus on your score, vertically, but to focus on your score horizontally as well, because you might, come up with an impossible, jump interval that is not friendly to any musician or instrumentalist, and you wouldn't even realize it. Like if you have like a tritone or whatever, or if you have a leading tone that doesn't resolve to the root notes, stuff like that. That is not is it's not conducive to. It's not going to sound right when you hear it either. When you hear it live, it might sound right on like a DAW, but it's gonna be weird because everyone's you're gonna hear it, you're gonna hear something's off because once you hear a leading tone, the seventh of a chord, it's gotta go up unless, something else happens, but
Right, exactly. If you have something that's needs to resolve a certain way, a certain, um, voice in the chord, like you mentioned, the leading tone, like, if it's something that needs to resolve a certain direction, but if you're not paying attention to that as you're writing these parts and have it jump to the opposite direction that feels natural to our ears, then for the person playing it, it might feel very disjointed, like
and it might mess them up because they're thinking, "Oh, it's if we're in the key of C and this is a B playing a G chord, I gotta go to C."
right,
That's what they've done their entire lives.
yeah, and yeah, stuff like that is very important to pay attention to.
So we have one of your pieces is you did I Spy and you have a song message in the bottle. Is this the rendition of the
Yeah, the one
yeah.
I sent to you, yep.
So let's talk about that. You mentioned it's a three-piece horn section with a bass, guitar, and drums?
Yep,
And so tell me about the process of writing this. We talked about it a little bit, but I wanna get a little bit deeper into it.
okay, sure, yeah. Um, so this one, sometimes I am just playing guitar and, like, something comes out, and there's that iconic riff in Message in a Bottle where it's the stacked fifths. It's like the opening riff of Message in a Bottle, and it's these stacked fifths, and one day I was messing around with my delay pedal, and I was playing those fifths, and it kind of created this cool rhythmic pattern, which I really enjoy doing. But then I was like, "What if we took that riff?" Later in the song, it kind of happens where I take that riff. I was like, "What if we took the riff and chopped off one of the eighth notes at the end of the first half of the riff?" So it's a measure of 7/8 and then a measure of 4/4. And you can hear in the song that it's the classic riff, but there's, like, this kind of, like, off
It's choppy.
yeah, kind of
Yeah.
off kilter kinda thing. That was a big part in writing this that I wanted to focus on, um, but also giving room for the bass to play the melody, and, um, there's also some reharmonization in there in the chorus. I like to add some extra chords and keep the melody in place, but embellish the melody with some harmonies under it that aren't the traditional chords that were written for the song. So those are some elements I was thinking about while I was arranging this.
So with that in mind, let's take a listen to "Message in a Bottle" arranged by Mr. Sam Yoder. and that was I Spy's rendition of Lisa's
No,
"Message in a Bottle."
Message in a Bottle. Yeah, the
Yeah,
you got it.
"Message in a Bottle" by The Police originally,
Yep,
and so that was, recorded all live,
it was. Yep,
and you have a video of that.
yep, there's video on my YouTube channel, for this EP that I recorded this past year. We set up in a f my friend Corey Paternoster's space, The Upside,
Yep, yep, I know where that is.
and we set up in there, and we did, 2 separate sessions, 3 songs in each session, and we recorded video and did all the recording. I did all the recording myself and set up the space for the recording session, and we did it all live. So, it was very inspired by things like this Snarky Puppy concert, like the
Mhm,
live video thing, but, it's a little smaller and self-produced, and so,
and, what is your YouTube channel?
you can just find it it's my name, Sam Yoder.
And I wanted to comment on, reharmonization because that is something I've really, really been enjoying of, I don't know if you know Adam Neely at all?
Yeah, yeah, of course.
Adam Neely, for those who don't know, is a YouTuber, and he's done several reharmonizations of popular songs, like one that I really like is "Hello" by Adele, and he
Yeah,
did "Thank You Next" by Ariana Grande, and that is something I really love, and I really wanna get into more is that, like, reharmonization because everyone uses, the 4 chords every the 4 chords, like 1, 5,
mm,
6, 4, that chord progression over
sure.
and over again or variations of that chord progression, and I really, really enjoy hearing stuff done in, something different.
Yeah, me too.
And so you did that with this song a little bit. Um, do you wanna do more of that kinda stuff? Or what I know you have original compositions, but you seem like you also like to do covers. What is
Yeah, that's a good exercise to take a song that you already like and maybe you already know it and try reharmonizing it, and there's a lot of different ways people talk about doing reharmonizing, and they're all great ways to do it, and there are so many different ways to do it. Um, I think that a great way to start doing it maybe is to really focus on the melody
yeah.
and make sure the melody is still intact and find chords that are maybe outside of your diatonic set of chords that include those melody notes
It makes sense.
and make sense, and start there, and then just follow your ear to where things land.
For example, I was commissioned to do a Silent Night piece, and Silent Night is, 1 Silent Night, da 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 ba-da it's, 1, 4, 1, 5, whatever,
Yeah.
and it's very, very simple,
Mhm.
but you can take, um, that and, Silent night, holy, holy night, and you can take those sorry for my horrible singing, but you can take those notes and you can find, if it's B flat, the first one, ba-da-da-bum, and my ear training is failing me, but I'm pretty sure that'd be a 4 at the end, but you can change that into, a 2 or if you really wanna get fancy, you can turn it into a diminished chord and, make it really fancy and really jazzy and stuff like that,
Yeah, exactly.
and go throughout the song, make stuff that, uh, makes sense. It might sound a little weird, that's okay, that's part of the fun of figuring out voice leading and, other things among that nature, and it's really easy to take a current pop song that is really, really simple, and then taking that and reharmonizing it and making something really, really cool.
Right. And, I mean, I think it's important to have a strong connection to what the song is originally written as too. Like,
Mhm.
it's easy to be like, "Okay, I wanna write all these crazy chords and that kinda stuff," but make sure there's, like, a understanding of what the original song was before turning it into something completely different. Because I know personally, I've taken stuff and wanting to make it, like, more complicated right out of the gate before even, like, having a complete grasp of what the original song is, so
For sure.
that's something to be said about simplicity too.
And not only that, but also, feeling and tone of the song in general as well,
Mhm.
and make sure you have that in mind as well because, stuff like that will completely throw off, you know, have fun making Silent Night into a heavy rock metal song, right? Uh,
Yeah.
I'm sure it's been done, but have fun doing it, right? Um, but I don't know if you ever heard of the what is it, Jukebox? The '60s Jukebox where they, take really popular current songs and, like, jukeboxify them and
Is that postmodern
yeah,
jukebox?
postmodern
Yeah.
jukebox. Stuff like that, it's great, it's awesome, and if you wanna learn more about, doing that kinda stuff, take a listen to them, see how they do it, and, the best way to learn is to do it yourself.
Yeah.
And so for you, you had this EP come out, when was it?
It was released in January of this past year, and all the songs were recorded. One recording session was in the spring of 2022, and then the last one was in the fall of 2022.
And so is this, you have some covers, is there any original material in there as well, or
Yeah, so there's one cover, and then the other 5 songs are all original songs that I wrote, and it's just music I've been writing for a while and kind of had in the back burner because 'cause I'm always have a lot of stuff going on and all over the place, but yeah, it was cool to like, have something that was completely my own to record and work on.
and so you all you do is instrumental music for the most part, correct me if I'm wrong?
Uh, as of now, I am working on some stuff that I would like to incorporate some singers on for this group. Um, like, I really want this group to bring in different musicians and different people in the future going forward. I would really like to experiment having other people bring in their voice and make these songs. Because something that's really cool about the set of songs that I released is the musicians who played on it, they really brought it to life and put that as much of their, like, mark on the music that like, I wrote it, but, like, they bring it to life just as much, so
Right.
and that's something I would like to explore more going forward with this group is maybe bringing in some singers for a song or different instrumentalists and that kind of stuff.
So, for an instrumental wise, how do you create a concept? What is that, composition process like for you? Is it, "Oh, I saw this today and made me think of this melody," or, "I heard this today," and how does that work for you?
So for me, it's different. A lot of the time writing, there's different ways that I do it. Sometimes the song just, like, comes together just like playing an acoustic guitar, like, I'm playing my acoustic guitar, and I discover some chords that I like how they sound together, and maybe I'm, like, not opposed to just taking a piece of, manuscript paper and just writing out, like, a song and writing out the melody and the chords, making kind of a lead sheet, but, um I've done that, but lately, I've been writing a lot in Logic on my computer
Mhm.
and Sibelius, just the notation software. Um, in Logic, taking I've been, like, sampling kind of stuff and, like, chopping things up and kind of making beats and, like, that kinda stuff, but then kind of fleshing it out more into a composition, and sometimes I find, like, these sounds that I chop up in Logic kind of spark some sort of inspiration to take it in some other direction. And then I'll kinda make a demo in Logic, and some of them sound janky. Like, sometimes I make stuff in Logic, and I'm like, "This kinda sounds cheesy because the drums kinda suck," but it's it's a demo, it's a song, and I know when real musicians play it, it's gonna
Oh, great.
sound better, so, um, as I demo stuff out in Logic, I kind of it's kind of bare bones, it's like maybe the chords and a melody, and maybe some drum beat or whatever. But then I'll bring it over to Sibelius, and this is when I kinda, like, orchestrate it for the band. So, a lot of these songs on this EP, they started out as a demo in Logic, and then I would bring them over to Sibelius. Sometimes you can even export if you have, like, MIDI,
Yeah. That's
uh,
nice.
in Logic, like melodies on, like, a keyboard or something played into Logic, you can export that out and bring it into Sibelius, and it'll already
Be there, be
yeah,
notated.
it'll be notated,
It's great.
but sometimes it kind of
Sometimes a little janky,
yeah, you need to adjust things and clean it up.
but it's better than, starting from scratch for
R
sure.
right, exactly. So, I kinda do that, and then I orchestrate it out to find which instruments are playing what parts during the song, and that has been a great process for me to get something that is kind of a basic demo out into a full song that I can put charts in front of the band and people can read it.
Is that the process for Forecast, another one of your songs?
It is, yes.
And so what is this song specifically about? What is the story behind this one?
So this one was exactly like what I just explained, like, I was messing around in Logic, and I bring in samples of stuff. I really like this guy, The Count. He, produces these sample packs, and I've been downloading those, and you can bring them into Logic and slice them up, whatever, but it like, I was doing that, and I kind of built this beat that was um, kinda reminded me of, like, a rainy day, kind of like a mellower thing, and created a melody and all of this. And then once I had this demo in Logic, it was only like a maybe like a 32 bar demo of the song in its, like, most basic form. I took it out of there and went over to Sibelius and kind of arranged it for the band to play it, and yeah, that's it kind of turned out
Something like
but
this.
yeah, something like this.
And that was I Spy's Forecast. Where can people find you and your band?
Where can you find us?
Yeah.
Well, right now, all that music is up on Spotify and YouTube, like I had mentioned. We do have a show coming up, at Zootropolis May 6th, so this is gonna be, like, our opening show. We're gonna be playing a bunch of this music that's on the EP and, a few new songs that I've been writing, and, yeah, it's gonna be a great show. We're also on a bill with another band, Brendan Brisk, I think his name is. But, yeah, it'll be a show. I'm excited for that. Um, Working on booking some other stuff. Um, Hoping to do another recording session maybe before the first half of this year flies by,
Like
but
it's
it
already
would
been
yeah, it would be great to, I'm hoping to get another recording session and do more video. It's interesting having a band like this, um, trying to market it and get out and get play shows and stuff and find an audience to connect to. I find
mm,
that's kind of a tricky thing, like, to for a band that's just starting out. So,
and
I'm
an instrumentalist band for the
exa
most part.
exactly. So, I'm trying to figure out ways to make content and keep recording and growing on that side before going out and playing shows where, like
Money's on the line.
exactly, exactly. Like, if you're playing a show somewhere, like, are people gonna show up? But, like, this is a whole other topic,
It
like,
is, yeah.
it's, like, maybe produce more content and record more stuff and focus on the production side and
The digital side.
yeah, and making live video content and having a library of that stuff before going out and playing shows, like, yeah.
Do you have any other shows that you wanna promote before we go into our final questions for the day?
Yeah, so Big Boy Brass, we're gonna be doing stuff at the Tellus rooftop over the summer. Again, the Sundays. We've been doing that for,
A while now.
yeah, I wanna say, like, 5 or 6 years.
Yeah.
We're not gonna be there every Sunday
It's like
this
every
year.
other, right?
I think it's gonna be every other or maybe once or twice a month. So that'll be fun. That's
Yeah.
always a fun time.
I'll talk a bit on that. It's one of the best experiences you'll ever have. Honestly, as a person walking down in Lancaster City, Sunday afternoon, all you'll hear from a lot of places around the city, you'll be able to hear the Big Boy Brass just jamming on top of Tellus, and you're like, "Where is that coming from?" It's at Tellus. It's on the rooftop. It's a little bit of walking to get up there, but once you get up there, you can stay and enjoy a really great experience. I highly recommend it. Big Boy Brass. Shout out to Connor Devlin and
Yeah,
all those guys.
yeah. And the cool thing about these past few years of the rooftop, it's kind of become like a community event too.
Yeah,
So like other musicians come out and just like sit in and play with us, which I always think is a lot of fun. Like having other horn players or singers or percussionists like come up and play with us. That's always so much fun. Yeah.
so, getting into the questions I'd like to ask everybody, we kinda talked about this a little bit beforehand. What as a instrumentalist and composer primarily, what is something that you haven't done but you want to do?
Something I've been wanting to do for a while. I mean, this is kind of I guess it's music related and all of that, but it's like I've been wanting to like move maybe to more of a city area that outside of Lancaster and find like put myself in uh
A bigger pond.
yeah, a bigger pond exactly. So that's something that right now I've been thinking a lot about like so
That's a whole podcast in of itself.
yeah,
What
exactly.
when you
There's
become a big too big of a fish for your pond or
I'm not saying that,
well,
but
I'm not saying you're saying that either, but it's a conversation to have.
right.
What Lancaster is a really or Central PA really is a rather big pond in of itself,
Sure.
full of incredible musicians, and you out eventually you're gonna outgrow. I mean, if you do it well, you're gonna outgrow your home spot, you're gonna have to go to Philly, and then Philly has a certain pond, and you might outgrow that, then you get New York, LA, and then you're on the world stage at that point. But it's always finding that, okay, when am I ready to move? Or, because if you move too quickly, you're gonna get eaten
Right,
or
yeah,
whatever, right?
yeah, so that's something I've been thinking about, that I wanna do eventually, um, like you mentioned. But in the meantime, I really like just keep writing more original material, um, hoping to get out and play more shows and record more, um, yeah, and keep growing that way. Just
So
slowly moving the rock up the hill.
so out of all your performances, all the bands you've played in, even at your time in American Music Theater, what's one of the funniest things that's ever happened to you on stage, or one of the worst things?
Um, there's been some funny things with Big Boy Brass
Oh,
shows,
I'm sure.
like, um, I'm trying to think of, like, an specific thing. There's been times where we've gotten, like, rained on, like, pretty hard, and since we're mostly a brass band, like, I play guitar and trombone with Big Boy Brass, and I switch back and forth. So there's been shows where, like, it starts downpouring on us or something, and we're outside, and I, like, grab my amp and, like, all my electric gear and, like, run it to my car or, like, into a building, and then I run back out and everyone's still jamming in the rain, like,
Like, nothing's happening.
yeah, like, well, nothing's happening, just
They're playing Purple Rain, and it's
yeah, it's always fun just,
raining.
like, jamming out in the rain, that's always fun. Um, instances where, like, power's gone out or there's this time at American Music Theater this past season where we were playing a show to, like, pretty full house of people, it's a big theater. We do the Christmas show there,
Mhm.
and all the singers are out on the stage, and then all of a sudden, just all the lights go out in the entire building,
Oh,
and
no.
everyone's just like, "What?" And actors are all on stage like, "What do we do?" And
What'd you
they
do?
we sat there, we just hung tight, and it was like 15 minutes went by, and the power came back on. But those are kinda like funny moments that you'd never forget because it's just like, "What?"
What yeah, yeah, I'm surprised no one panicked when the lights went out, because that's what I would do. Um, so what is one of the if you could give anybody, any musician, one piece of advice, what would it be?
Hmm. Just, try not to lose focus of what brings you that lights the fire within you to be inspired to make music, and keep sight of that because it's easy to lose sight of that kind of stuff when especially with social media and all of that, like, you see your peers maybe doing one thing and this person doing that thing, and you're like, "Oh, I need to do this. Oh, I need to do that. Oh, I need to do this," and I don't know, stay true to what actually makes you feel fulfilled, and
Stay principled.
yeah,
Yeah,
and
for
not try
sure.
to just do something
Just to do it.
because everyone else is
Yeah.
doing it or yeah, it's important to stay inspired and keep that spark lit. I know, like, for me, sometimes it's easy to get not motivated, and, like, I think that's an important thing as a musician is to keep that fire lit and,
So to follow up that question, and this will be the last one, what is your fire, your spark?
um, to for me, it's to see that incremental growth and just,
Mm,
like, keep building my craft. Like, I love practicing instruments, different instruments, trombone and guitar mainly, um, and being able to play certain songs or um, certain pieces that I couldn't play before, or working on techniques. That's very fulfilling to me, and also creating something, like writing music, and because I could, like, lock myself in a room and practice long tones on the trombone for, like, hours,
More
but
power to you on that one.
it's like, after I do that, I'm like, "Man, I should've just spent that time writing music." So that's finding that balance of creating and also practicing. Um, yeah, that being self-motivated to do that is keeps keeps my fire lit, like.
That's awesome because I know a lot of people that can't stand practicing, and they should learn a lot from you.
Yeah,
So
I love practicing, it's, like, one of my favorite things.
So if you want to check out more of Sam Yoder and all the things he does, you can check out his website, samyodermusic.com. That's SAMYODER music.com. You can have he has a few shows coming up with Big Boy Brass and his I Spy. When was that again? March, May,
May 6th,
May
Saturday,
6th.
May 6th.
At Zootropolis, a really great venue. It used to be a cinema house, and then they ripped out a lot of the cinema seats and put in couches. So it's a really great spot to hang out, and y'all should go to that one for sure. My name is Corey Rose, and this has been the Story Podcast. If you want to find out more about me and what I do, you can follow us, like, subscribe, comment, especially if you really enjoyed the show. Please be sure to do that. You can find out more about me and the podcast at CoreyRosenProductions.com. That's CORYROSEN Productions.com. You can find all the projects I'm working on, including this podcast and all 132 guests that I've had on before him.
Nice.
And you can, if you want to check out more of our episodes and see who's coming up, please be sure to, like I said, follow, like us. You'll find out who's coming up next. And we have really cool people coming up next in this week. We have tomorrow, we have Jeff Pinninger, who is the owner of the PA Musicians Pipeline TV show up north. And he does a kind of uh, late night show where they interview musicians and they play the live set on TV. So
Oh,
for the
cool.
Central PA region, and so that's really cool. I'm really excited to talk to him. And this Friday we have Stephen Courtney again returning. He is a you know about Stephen Courtney?
I don't think so.
He's a renowned children music artist. He has 5 songs on Sesame Street,
Oh, cool.
and he had his own award-winning uh, TV show as well, the Stephen Courtney channel. So I'm excited to continue his story that day. That's Friday, and then Saturday I have Adam Yarger, 2 p.m. That's going to be a country singer from around the area. He's done some incredible stuff with incredible people and is going places. So I'm really excited to talk to him. And then next Sunday we have Big Mama Music coming over. She is a uh, impressionistic musician. So she dresses up in old style fashion of the time and sings the songs of the 60s, 50s, and whatever that 70s, 80s that she wants to do. And she dresses up like the time period and gives you a real snapshot of the time of that music. So I'm really excited to see where she gets all those dresses from. With all that said,
Nice.
I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of the day, and we will see you guys later. Bye.
Bye.